I released this video a few months ago. Ever since it went up, people have been commenting and messaging me about two things. One is at the 26-minute mark where I incorrectly said that the Switch was released in 2016 instead of 2017. I'm not sure how I read that wrong, but I did. Just know that I'm aware of my error. And the second thing, well, let's talk about it. Light. It's the reason we see, the thing that gives us a sense of security, lets us know of our surroundings, a clarifier in darkness, a calm embrace after a storm. It's essential for most everything. The absence of light brings confusion. We struggle to understand what's around us. Days are based around how much light we can get out of it. Nights are used to dream away the darkness. Illumination is required for progress. This illumination eluded those who wished to continue playing when the sun descended. Without the reliance on outside sources, it was impossible to continue on. From 1989 to 2003, Nintendo kept their portable players in the dark. Every Game Boy up to the Game Boy Advance was engineered to rely on the outside world to bring their games to life, forcing them to rely on retrofitted lights from third parties that addressed the issue. But these too weren't perfect and were used only when light was scarce. Passing street lights were few and far between, with mere seconds afforded to do anything productive. But there was a bright spot. Nintendo made a Game Boy that overcame the darkness. It overturned the idea that playing during the day was better than playing at night. This model embraced the lack of light and enhanced gameplay during these times. It's aptly named the Game Boy Light. There's a big drawback to the Game Boy Light. It was a Japan exclusive. The rest of the world wasn't privy to it. For everyone else, the Game Boy Advance SP was the first Game Boy to offer any sort of built-in light. The SP's redesign, the Game Boy Advance AGS 101, has been known as the best official standalone Game Boy. There are several reasons why this is the case. It has the era-defining clamshell design that protects all the important features of a portable console, keeping the buttons and screens safe from unnecessary wear. It's backwards compatible with every Game Boy title, which opens up the possibility of playing Game Boy Color and original Game Boy games on one device. And most important, the screen was finally given what it should have had long ago, a proper backlight. It was a revelation to the Game Boy line. The standard SP has a front light, and for the time, seemed amazing. A Game Boy console with any sort of light was wonderful, but that front light washed away most of the contrast from the image. The 101 revision really showed what Game Boy games truly looked like. It was about time Nintendo put a backlight on a Game Boy. But the truth is, a backlight wasn't new to the Game Boy family. Before we go on talking about the Game Boy Light, it's important to know why Nintendo even bothered to make it at all. The original Game Boy got things right at the perfect time. It came out in 1989 in North America. It was a revelation being able to play games of that quality anywhere you wanted. Game Boy games are deeply loved by many who played them. NES and Super Nintendo games were given spin-offs or even sequels on the Game Boy. It was amazing playing Mario and Zelda on the go. Everything about the hardware was right. Even though it's big by today's standards, it feels great while playing it. If you didn't like the size of the iconic original, Nintendo eventually made a smaller revision called the Game Boy Pocket. This redesigned version was even more portable and played the same games. There is, however, one flaw with both iterations: the screen. It doesn't look all that great. And the even bigger issue, it's not lit. We had to adapt to the absence of a built-in light, either by not playing in dark conditions or using something that connected to the console that provided light. like this magnifying glass light that also made the screen appear larger. The lack of light would follow the Game Boy all the way to the original model of the Game Boy Advance, and this is the model that probably needed it the most. The screen is surprisingly dark. It was no secret that the original Game Boy had an inferior display compared to the handheld competition at the time. Others, like the Game Gear, had lit color screens. In contrast, the Game Boy has this green screen that relies on outside light sources to illuminate it. Let's be honest, this look is nostalgic, but it's not visually pleasing. Although it did make the Game Boy affordable. And best of all, it allowed it to run off 4 AA batteries. Also, it doesn't use as many batteries as often, compared to the Game Gear that required 6 AA batteries that gave it a runtime of only about 3 to 5 hours. The Game Boy screen was something we got used to. There was no other option. The Game Boy Pocket, which I touched on earlier, released 7 years after the original Game Boy had been on the market. Its redesign changed just about everything about the original, including its size. The Pocket name was given to show just how much more compact it was. I never put this in my pocket, but I guess it could have fit. Even though it's considerably smaller than the original, it's still comfortable to play. And best of all, it only uses 2 AAA batteries. It's not just the shell and the battery compartment that were changed. The screen was also changed for the better. It's now closer to a true black and white rather than the iconic green and yellow. But there remained a little DNA from the original. The screen still lacked a backlight, or any light for that matter. It too relies on ambient light in order to illuminate the screen. Though this wasn't a surprise, it was still a little disappointing. And Nintendo knew that. In 1998, the Game Boy was once again redesigned. This new Game Boy changed the shell once again to one that's a bit larger than the Pocket. The battery compartment also sticks out further than the rest of the shell. This is to make room for the 2 AA batteries it takes to power the console. The screen was also changed. Instead of black and white, it's now a beautiful color display. They named it the Game Boy Color. The best thing about this Game Boy is that it plays all Game Boy games. But what makes it even better is that it plays those old games in color. It was amazing seeing those games running with real colors. Going from this to this was really quite amazing. But what hindered this Game Boy model was the same hindrance that past models suffered from: the lack of a built-in light. Again, it relies on outside light sources to reflect the image back into your eye. It's baffling that it didn't have a lit screen, considering what was released just a few months prior to the launch of the Game Boy Color. In early 1998, Nintendo would release the best Game Boy most of the world never got to see. It was exclusive to Japan, which is a shame because it remedied the one problem facing most Game Boy models. It has a backlight. The Game Boy Light was the first Nintendo Game Boy that provided a built-in solution for playing games in the dark. This flipped the script upside down as to which way to play was better. Nighttime play is arguably the decisive way to play because the graphics are so much easier to see. The light in this Game Boy isn't a typical light you see in a modern console or even the AGS 101. The screen is lit with an electroluminescent backlight that illuminates with a pleasing soft green glow. Watches from around the same time utilize the same panel. I wanted one of these watches just because of the light. If I had a chance to get a Game Boy with that same light, I would have done anything for it. This light complements these games perfectly. It's easy to see everything that's going on the screen. The Game Boy Light has the typical on and off switch on the top left corner. This switch has 3 settings: off, on, and the last setting illuminates the screen. The backlight doesn't do much while playing in ideal lighting conditions. To optimize battery life, Nintendo included the middle setting. It has more in common with the size and design of the Game Boy Color than it does the Game Boy Pocket. The Nintendo logo under the screen is recessed like the Game Boy Color, instead of being raised, which is how it is on the Game Boy Pocket. The buttons are the same story as the Nintendo logo, recessed just as they are on the Game Boy Color. The battery compartment sticks out further than the rest of the console, like the Game Boy Color. It was redesigned to accommodate the 2 AA batteries it takes to power the console. This design utilizes the shape and size of the batteries to create a comfortable feel and conform to your fingers. The screen is very similar to that of the Game Boy Pocket. It has the same amount of blurriness that most Game Boys of this time have. The light, however, makes everything look that much better. Don't get your hopes too high though, there's still plenty of ghosting present. But the light does help the artwork stand out, as the light contrasts against the dark pixels. The model number for this Game Boy ends in a 101. This same model number would accompany the next Game Boy that would have a backlight. The Game Boy Light was a major step forward for the Game Boy. It allowed players to enjoy their games anywhere, without the bother of using an external light source. The soft green glow complements Game Boy games perfectly. While the Game Boy Light was a revelation for Nintendo, they decided to take a step back and remove it for another 7 years. It's important to remember that the Super Game Boy was out during this time. If you wanted to play those games in the best way possible, the Super Game Boy was the way to go, because you could play them on your lit TV with colors added to the games. Light is the reason we see, the thing that gives us a sense of security, lets us know of our surroundings. It's essential for most everything we do. The absence of light brings confusion. We struggle to understand what's around us. Nights are used to dream away the darkness. Illumination is required for progress. From 1989 to 2003, Nintendo kept their portable players in the dark. Every Game Boy up to the Game Boy Advance was engineered to rely on the outside world to bring their games to life. Those that embraced the systems questioned why Nintendo kept them in the dark, forcing them to rely on retrofitted lights from third parties that addressed the issue. But these two weren't perfect, and were used only when light was scarce. Nintendo knew this and made a Game Boy that overcame the darkness. It superseded all that came before it. The Game Boy overturned the idea that playing during the day was better than playing at night. This model embraced the lack of light and enhanced gameplay during these times. It's aptly named the Game Boy Light, the best Game Boy we never had.